Hey guys, Austin here at CR Components. So a couple weeks ago, we had a customer call in and asking questions because he was confused because his brake discs, he said, were too big and weren't fitting past his face seal when he went to flip in. He said he'd watched our previous videos where normally you have your whole brake pack stacked up and then you'll flip these. You normally just flip it right over and it'll slide right past. And we got our hands on an actual Bobcat, attached Bobcat reman, MCR-5 here, and I didn't notice it when I took it apart, but I came to reassembling it because the brake's good. The brake was good on it for me to reuse, and so I was going to show you here today how a different process that I'm going to try and take to install it in case you do have one of these Bobcat reman units. I don't know if it's for sure every Bobcat reman unit, but something is definitely a little fishy here. So I got everything oiled up, so I'll just go ahead and stack these up. The main difference is, in order to install this, we're gonna have to do it a little weird. So I greased this edge just to help me out in the long run. So I installed this face seal like normal, and then you're gonna have to place your other actual mechanical metal face seal on the other one on this side on your brake, and you'll see why in a second. But before I get too far, I'll try and lay everything out to show you guys and explain it just a little bit better. So the reason why we have to put this one in instead of just being able to flip it over, so these are our brand new brake packs we sell and what I normally use when the brakes go bad. And these are the Bobcat, the brake pack that came out of this Bobcat reman. And it's a little hard to tell in the video. Hopefully the color difference is there, but you can see how these outer discs, the tabs, are quite a bit different in size. They're just a bit wider. So when I went to install this, I noticed, holy cow, not that I didn't believe the customer, but this is the first time we've actually seen it, that these brake discs won't fit past the face seal because the tabs were machined wrong. Well, not necessarily wrong, they're just machined super tight and quite a bit longer, so they won't actually fit. So that's the reason why we're gonna have to do this a little bit different of a way. So bear with me. This is my first time doing it, and hopefully these aren't gonna be okay. We still got quite a bit of play in there, so they will work fine. So I'm sure this part of the video will have sped up rapidly, so you don't have to watch me put all the discs in, but come back. Right, so now that the tricky part's over, just like always, put 4 in, tighten them like you would a tire. Don't want to, what we want to avoid with these is the reason why we put them in slow, I'll put them all the way up until I feel them hit the top of that spacer there. The reason why we do everything in kind of a crisscross pattern is because if you put too much pressure on one side, it can slide discs out, and that'll cause your discs to actually misalign, and then you won't be able to fit it in the grooves in the housing properly. So now that I got all these finger tight, go ahead and grab my 6mm wrench, and I go about a quarter turn. Feel it get tight, go a quarter turn, tighten it down, a quarter turn. So one thing, just talking out loud while I'm doing this, if you're installing a new bearing, I highly recommend that before you put your brake assembly together, use this housing with the race in here to press your bearing down, and then you can just pop it right off. I wouldn't even have a shaft install your shaft seal. I would just install your bearing, put your actual bearing with the rollers on your shaft here, the spindle, and then go ahead and press everything in. Then you don't have to worry about any kind of wear on your shaft coming in and out, or your shaft seal coming in and out, and nothing getting stuck. And then that bearing's already pressed on there, so you're not trying to deal with aligning this, and in this case getting your face seal to press in and pressing the bearing down. Just leaves a lot less room for error. So like I said, our bearing's already down, so that's good. So now it's just getting these bolts secured. And normally these will just dead end. There's no actual torque spec. I'm sure there is, but this plate doesn't flex at all. It'll hit the top where the bolts are, and you'll feel it just right there. So I normally go till I feel it tighten and stop, and just give it a little bit more of a push. Put these last 4 bolts in, and then we'll flip it over, and I'll show you how to get this face seal in. It'll be a little tricky. The video might be a little hard to get a good angle on it, but hopefully you'll get the picture of how I'm doing this here. So I'm going to use my hand. Alright, so now that we got a bearing pressed in and that, like always, I try and start everything just so nothing has to dry start. Try and give it just a little bit of oil on the bearings. Or hydraulic oil is what we're using, because that hydraulic oil goes through both your bearings. So now that we got that all covered up, let's go ahead and try and flip this, and I will do my best to take these plugs off. Sometimes the oil just eats away at my fingers. So this is going to be the tricky part. So this is going to want to move on you. You can see how it slides. So the goal is to flip it over as gently as possible, and then allow the weight of this housing, since this bearing's not sitting high, the weight of this housing should push down on the rubber seal when I flip it over, and it'll kind of hold it for me, where then I can use that same face seal tool that I normally do to kind of work this in. I did grease in here. Some people say it's not the best, only because grease can contain and trap dirt in there. For this application specifically, I'm doing it just so that way, because this housing is fairly heavy, it lets my O-ring kind of slide in there a little bit better, and then I'll try and wipe off the excess grease. And then before I paint it, we always end up brake cleaning everything off anyway, so it'll end up getting cleaned twice. So you can see when I go to flip it up on its side, it's gonna wanna push over on me. So this is gonna be kind of the hard part. What I think I can do is we're gonna flip it over onto the bolts, and do our best here to keep this aligned. So you can see down here, I've got this aligned. So if you pull it too far, it'll try and fall over on itself, because these are just small enough where you can get like one corner of a circle, one edge of the circle to fall off. So now the tricky part. So I'm gonna have to go ahead, just like always, align my brake in here, and as that goes down, we should be able to see. Just like that. Alright. So this did slide over on me. This is definitely going to be tricky. Okay, so you can see now, you can see how it's canted. So what we're going to do is I'm going to work from the far end, the higher end, and I'm going to try and work my way around this backside and pushing it in. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this screwdriver, and we'll see if we can't get this to fall into place. So it's just a little rounded screwdriver, a little hard to see probably on the video. Just tiny little one. I run it off the edge so it's soft and round, and it's not going to cut anything. Getting under this flange will probably be the hardest part. So I'm going to put some pressure here to try and get this to work itself in correctly. So I'm doing my best to not roll this at all, because that's what you want to avoid, is any rolls in your face seal. The actual O-ring itself. So I should be able to work this out. One thing you can see is that face seal went just a little bit far I kind of am using that to roll it back up right in here. If you push too far down with whatever tool you're using, what can happen is you'll push it underneath the metal seal. And that is what we don't want to do. So, see as I'm working this around here, this is definitely much more tricky than the normal way with our actual new brake packs that were designed from the original design, where you can install these face seals. I'm actually going to get a bigger flathead here. This one's actually got a point to it, so I got to be careful with it, but these flanges are making things a little hard to get an angle in. But I think we're getting close here. So now, moment of truth. What I'm checking for now is to make sure that there's no super low spots in the O-ring where it might have actually slipped past the metal, and I don't see any currently. So now that we got to that point, we can finish the rest here. So that's kind of the trickier part. Like I said, it's gonna be a bit of a pain. I had to actually hold this up kind of with my hip and my hand and then shift that face seal so it rests perfect. And it is gonna want to kind of fall down on one side, but I think for what we got here, feels good. I don't see any of the actual O-ring itself, the rubber O-ring folded underneath. So go ahead, throw some oil on these bearings, and we'll go ahead and press this together. So the rest of our YouTube videos here are the rest of it will carry on the same way as the normal videos we made for these style of motors, but always oil everything. And from here on, our brake, you can always check your brake to make sure it's aligned too. You'll have a little bit of play, but you'll hear it knocking like that. So now we'll throw it in the press and press it. So kind of an odd, spontaneous video we decided to do, but yeah, it's, I guess the Bobcat remans on a couple of them, they had a manufacturer where these outer discs are just a little bit bigger. So if you run into problems, that's the best way I can think on how to install them, other than if you want to buy, if your brake's bad and you end up buying a new one from us, then you won't have to do it this crazy, a little bit sketchier way. But everything looks good here. We'll throw it on the test bench and she'll run great. Thanks for watching.